Jennifer Peralta-AJEMIan.
Ajemian, yep.
Ajemian. I knew I was going to mess that up. Ajemian.
It's okay. It's tricky.
Awesome. Yeah. Thanks for coming on the show.
Thanks for having me.
So you're a casting director?
Yes.
Awesome.
Yeah, I do film, TV, and animation. That's my focus.
Awesome. Yeah. So casting director based out of everywhere.
Yeah, well, I'm in New York City, but casting has become so global.
Mm-hmm.
So, before the pandemic, self-tapes were being used, because of the internet, everything is much quicker to get submissions, et cetera. So our outreach has been more national and global level.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I've done a number of self-submits and almost to the point, because I started acting 5 or 6 years ago, almost to the point where I did not want to come into an audition. I said, I've got this whole setup. And we were talking offline how I have this whole setup for previous podcasts and self-submits and, some very ultra independent web series that me and some partners do, that I could knock out 5 self-submits in one day, as opposed to going out to your audition, which will take me an hour to get there, sit there for a couple hours. I could have knocked out 17 other things in that 4 hours at home.
Yeah. So. I mean, there's nothing more important than the in-person energy.
That is true. Mm-hmm.
But at the same time, productions only have a certain amount of budget to rent rooms, or, even if we have our own audition space, like our own office, we build it into the rate, you know what I mean? So there's so much time. So the self-tape process has been really helpful in seeing additional people, especially if it's for a really specific role.
Yeah.
So.
And also, speaking of, you can still do it, semi self-submit. You can do like Skype auditions, which is kind of like that. I didn't nail it, but I've done a couple of Skype auditions where you had, it was still that, like that connection and that like in-person sort of connection and emotion, feedback.
Right.
And this sort of thing. Yeah.
Yeah. There's one of the features I cast called The Catch. It's actually making its premiere at the Austin Film Festival next month, which is really exciting. I cast in New York, LA, and then for the lead, I cast in those 2 areas and also in the UK. So I was on like 3 different time zones.
Mm-hmm.
And so I was here, my director was in Boston, and then our gal, folks who auditioned were in one of the 3 cities. So and that was on Skype. So it could be, live feedback. I can record it. Now everyone's about Zoom. So, which is nice because like Zoom has a waiting room, that people can come in. So it's a little bit structured, like a session, if you will. But yeah, so it's, look, at the end of the day, you got to do what you got to do to get it done. And there's always going to be someone that may not be able to attend in person. So it may have to be a remote audition at some point, Yeah.
Yeah. And and then especially now, that's all it is. And and then back to like the whole setup that I mentioned, I put together because I knew my wife was gonna, want to start a family. So I started building an at-home studio just to spend time with the kids, spend time with the wife, and I'd be able to work from home and still work within my field of film and TV. And I started dabbling into voiceover work, and I only booked 2 in like the last 3 years. I only nailed down 2 paid voiceover gigs, but the whole mic setup, and you can do that from home too. And I think for years, I know, just hearing like different stories, like Sean Connery, I think, did the voiceover for Fine and Forrester. He had to do like a final voiceover. He did that on the phone, I think on a DNS line in his bathroom.
Yeah.
Morgan Freeman, I think at this point has his own studio in his basement. Right.
But the tricky thing, especially with VO, is you have to make sure there's not outside sound coming in.
Right. Yeah.
Especially if they're using, if you're remote, they're going to use what you're sending through. So for the final spot or for the film, et cetera. So yeah, getting I have a friend that actually got her own booth. It costs a lot, but it's definitely worth it. I mean, because, you know, then she can just record nonstop with ease and not have to worry about, oh, am I, you know, is the door going to creak? Well, or, you know, all right, nobody go in the kitchen because we're right near you. And, you know, we can't, everything picks up so easily.
That's where
especially in New York City.
That's where that technical expertise comes into play. And, you know, like, so, yeah, I have a bachelor's in film and TV. So I've been doing crew work for 15 years. And then I started delving. So, you know, long story short, it was, okay, one year there's a lot of gigs and one year there's not. I got to fill in the schedule somehow. And so, utilizing my military experience, I just started booking. I started submitting to cop roles, detective roles, military roles, law enforcement, military roles. And I said, typecast me. I'll play the detective all day, every day, every episode, every other episode. And then, you know, so that helped out. 1 year was just nothing but acting. And then 1 year is back to nothing but crew, because you start networking, and that finds you more opportunities to network. Oh, hey, I'm also an AD. Oh, really? Yeah. And then, you know, your crew, and they're like, hey, you look like a cop. And I'm like, I actually play a cop a lot of times. And you start networking and trying to,
it's nice to mix it up too, you know?
Yeah.
So just
absolutely
variety.
Yeah, because as an actor, I know what crew are looking for. I know what a sound guy's looking for. I know what a director and an AD and the cinematographer and the sound guy are looking for. And I know what the crew wants. They want their cast in and out. Like, are you ready? Are we waiting around? What's wrong with this guy? Crew eats first, you know, that sort of thing. And then, you know, as that acting experience, and then being an actor, I'm studying that director. I'm seeing what, you know, a lot of the professional directors that work a lot are keeping it simple.
Yeah.
You know, like a lot of first-time directors are trying to do way too much. They think they're Scorsese right out of film school, or, you know, Tarantino right out of film school. And then when you get on a real set and you see what these directors are doing, they've prepped the hell out of it already, and how simple. They're just like, okay, so you just stand here and walk to me. All right, so more angry, do it again, more angry, and then that's it. I mean, and my little description there is, I'm even dumbing it down, and it's a little bit more complicated than that. Yeah. But, you know, like, you realize, wow, less is more, and these guys are not overdoing it.
I think it's, sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt. I think, you know, working with first-time feature directors, they're wonderful because there's that spark, and they're hungry to get their film out. But, you know, I think it's just a matter of they haven't gone through the process yet. So I think it's just a matter of them trusting their instincts, and everything rides on them, you know, I mean, it's also the producer too, but you know what I mean? So they want to make sure like they're making the right decisions. And, you know, when I come on board a project with a first-time feature director, I try to make, you know, I make sure, like, look, everything's gonna be fine. Whoever gets cast, that's who belongs in the film, and off you go with your team. You're gonna be fine. It's scary, but you're going to be fine. A friend of mine who's a director, more so in the ad world, said that his mentor would always tell him, you know, don't worry, it always works out. It always works out. So, and, you know, with first-time feature directors, I'm like, look, you know, don't expect your number one choice to say yes. It's extremely rare. Unless you're best friends with them, you wrote it for them. You know what I mean? So, like, every project has a very different starting point, whether it's a first-time feature director and a producer who has 10 feature films under the belt, or if it's the first-time feature for both of them. You know, what budget level, what names are you looking to attach? I mean, it begins and ends with the script. You know, when you have a great script, people are going to want to be a part of it.
Yeah.
I think no matter at what level, obviously there's more of you have to refine the conversation a little bit more, you know, the higher the level of actor you're looking to approach, but it has to be something they haven't done before. something that's a type of the character is a departure of what they've been seen on screen as. These are the conversations that casting directors have with directors and producers. Like, what's the message you want to want the audience to walk away with? Okay, what's the story? Okay, which actors are going to serve the story?
Yeah. And I was a second AD on a feature, and the way it was broken down, the first AD came to me and said, dude, I've shot this scene 1,000 times before. Mm-hmm. It's a different script and it's a different movie, but this scene I've shot 1,000 times before.
Wow.
It's going to come out great. Mm-hmm. It's going to look great. It's going to be funny as hell. And once in a while, me as a second, or once in a while, me as a first AD, I'm going to be able to add maybe a little touch to better the thing. Mm-hmm. But as like you said, if it's a great script, then that's really what matters. To me, the script might change. Mm-hmm. Casting might change. The writer might at the last minute decide it's not going to be a 40-year-old white male. It's going to be a 25-year-old black female. Mm-hmm. And these things happen. But at the end of the day, the most important thing is the movie. So when a director realizes, okay, I'm just going to direct. I've dealt with directors that wanted to shoot and AD, and they're thinking about editing, and it's like, bro, everything's already broke down. Everything's already broke down. When you get that script, you break it down. It's just like the military. It's just like basic training. When you get that script, you break it down. Shoot this bit, shoot this bit, shoot this bit, and then you build it back up when it comes to editing. And that's where the breakdown comes, and that's where the directing comes in. That's where actors piece together these scenes. Mm-hmm. Remember this scene. That's why you have sides. Your sides is just like this one page. Mm-hmm. And that's that for that day. And then the next day is the next scene. And then everything, and every different department has their little part to play. And it's a big team conglomerate, big team collaboration to make just one thing, not one. It's not one person's job. It's not another person's job to make one thing, and that's the film or the episode or the series.
Right.
So, I mean,
and that's a really great point that you brought up. It really is a collective, because, when I interview it with a director, no matter what level they're on, like, we have to be on the same page aesthetically, and it's about like us as a team working together. It's not, it's just about his or her vision. I feel like it's like the client is the story, not necessarily the client's the producer, even though the producer is the one that's paying me. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. It's kind of like up here, we all have to serve the story. And if there's egos involved, I just can't work in that environment. I know some, there's going to be one person that has a little shift, but I don't know, just in general, I like to know that I'm working with nice people. They know what they're doing. They know what they want. I like a director who knows what he or she wants.
Yeah.
Excuse me, they want. Because if you have too many ideas, it's just too scattered, It's good to be specific. Now, through the process, have I cast someone who's a little bit not as the character has been written? Yes, plenty of times, but it's good to have a starting point. And I always like to have, like, from the top of the process, when I'm looking at the characters, unless it's like a based on a true person or an event, like, obviously it's very specific, ethnicity and age-wise, but like if it's something that's an open canvas, where it's like a New York story, and we need, these are the age ranges. Okay, which ethnicities could we explore for each character? So it's a little more open. I'm very much about inclusion, but it has to fit the story, and it has to land still. Yeah. You can't just practice tokenism just to fill it in. So. Yeah. That's a big conversation I have.
with the director, and that's where prep comes in, because the
correct, yeah,
2/3 of the director's job can get done before shooting even starts.
Yeah,
and that's where maybe first time directors shoot themselves in the foot. And then you have to stick to a vision. Like I have a couple of projects. And colleagues are like, well, what if we did this? What if we did this? And I'm like, that's not the vision right now. And they're like, yeah, but the quality. I'm like, the vision is that it's grindhouse. The vision is that it's cheap for multiple reasons. Number one, we don't have the money, but number two, we use that as like the underlying look. Like the tongue-in-cheek joke is that it's those cheap crime shows, but it's a cheap crime show because we don't have the freaking money to make it a Law and Order type show. So we make it like, Evil Twins or Who Killed Jane Doe or whatever on ID. We make it look like that on purpose. But now that is the vision. So now, like enough said. Moving forward, this is the vision, and then we can tack on, and then we can tack on, and then we can tack on. But the director, the writer first meet, the producers first meet, discuss budget, work that vision within that budget. And then finally, when the director meets with you, it's like, here's what I want. I trust you as a casting director, but here's my vision. But now you as a team player, I know you have a skill set and you have a vision as well. You have a creative process.
Right.
Now I'm trusting that. So when I come back in a week and here's my cast, unless it's like shit hits the fan kind of thing, then it's like maybe not this person or this person, but otherwise it's like I've done my job as a director, directing you as a casting director. Now you as a casting director is going to direct the casting.
Right. Exactly.
That's even why they title them. That's why you had the title.
Yeah, I mean,
everybody has these titles.
The credit is still casting by, but
sure.
I'm looking forward to it changing to casting director, because you have like director of photography. I mean, I know they have cinematography by, but it's department heads. What's comical is that there's saying casting director is not taking away from the director. There's only one person, unless it's a co-directing team, that has the title just director, that one word. We have two words, casting director. You know what I mean? So, I know there's lots of conversation around that. And for anyone who's watching who wants to learn more about casting, how it started, they should look at the documentary Casting By, which focuses on Marion Doherty, and mostly on her, but they also mentioned Lynn Stallmaster, who Marion was in New York, Lynn was in LA, and how the craft of casting developed. And, Lynn was Marion's counterpart, if you will. They're on separate coasts. And this is like back in the day of you meet the actors and you just write your notes on a note card, eventually it's like headshots, resumes, sure. And then now everything's digital and we can do this. It's amazing how just the casting process itself has developed, and just how many more actors there are, especially of, different ethnicities, which is really nice. I mean, there needs to be more opportunities. I think there also needs to be more encouragement of just people exploring the arts, whether it's, even if it's not full time, but just part time. I mean, it's good to kind of, as a venting exercise, certain cultures, they don't encourage the arts to their kids, and that's fine, but the arts can be very beneficial.
Absolutely.
To anyone, I think. So I think that, and also there needs to be more light on writers of all colors, getting those projects produced and out there.
Absolutely.
You know, so obviously, you know, this whole movement. I mean, my company I started in 2014 focus on inclusion. And with the pandemic and Black Lives Matter, and which is very important, I think it's wonderful. All these initiatives are popping up. But I really hope it's not a trend.
Right.
You know, because that's, you know, that's not good either.
Because
so
then, yeah, it's
we'll
just
see how
because trends fade away.
Yeah.
And then, and also I've had previous guests, we've discussed, like, is it kind of being forced now, mixed with, is it a trend now? And then because especially Americans don't like to be forced to do something. And we previous guests, I've discussed with previous guests how Americans just don't like to be forced to wear a mask. And that's why you don't have a lot of people not wearing masks. And that's why you have a lot of widespread of the virus here in the States, because we're being forced to wear a mask. And then we've discussed, so like there was a topic that came up where someone was like, you know, it's being forced that, you know, Superman be played by a black guy now, or James Bond be a black woman now, or at least the spy identifier 007 is being passed from James Bond to a young black female. And I said, who gives a shit? It's a fictional character.
Yeah.
You know?
What's interesting is that it's great we've been honoring like the old school way of what the characters are written, but with each year, humans, we develop. Society develops, whether it's in a good way or not so good way. You know, it moves forward. So you have to, and that's what the beauty of the arts is that it should reflect the changes that are being made. So why not Batgirl be someone who is who's gay? Sure. I mean, just it's not like, oh, let's do this just because of this, but it's opening up and showing, because it's, you know, what's beautiful about filmmaking is that you can watch something over and over again, and it's timeless, literally and figuratively, but also it reaches so many people so quickly, and it's about the audience is relating to that story. Audience is relating to a character on screen, whether it's a supporting role or the lead. If I can create a space that serves the story where someone in the audience can connect with, whether a child or an adult, great, why not? That's the whole point. That's the whole point of storytelling.
Right.
But investors and studios, you know, the money people, they have to be open-minded too. And they're not as much, because it's a certain demographic, I think. So, look, I really hope all these changes are for real and they continue moving forward. And just because, you know, there's roles for people of color doesn't mean that people who are white don't get roles anymore. It's not that. It's just we're opening up.
Yeah.
It's because that's a whole thing that's being viewed in a certain way, that people may not be as open to talk about, which is understandable because of what's been happening with Black Lives Matter and things like that, you know, and discussions like that. So, but just for the record, it's not like, oh, we're not going to consider who we've been considering before. It's just we're considering everyone and being open-minded.
We're just considering more.
Yeah, it's about the possibility of a project and what could it do.
And inclusion of one doesn't mean exclusion of another. It's just inclusion of more.
Exactly.
And just making like on the casting notices, you might have seen, you know, male, Caucasian, 30 to 40s. Now you're just gonna see male, all ethnicities, 30 to 40. But still, that writer's gonna have, or the director's still gonna have something more specific in mind. It's probably not gonna be listed, but one director over another director is gonna have one thing or another thing more specific in mind. Which leads me to like which brought up something. A lot of people have asked me like, where are you getting these casting notices? Where are you getting these casting notices? And I'll tell them like this website, that website, this website, you log in, these are free, you got to pay for these, blah, 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 blah. And somebody said like, why are you telling all your trade secrets? What if I take your roles? I'm like, bro, you're not going to take my roles. You're 15 years younger than me and black. You're not taking my roles. You're a female. You're definitely not taking my roles.
Yeah.
There's
a role for everyone.
There's a role for everybody.
Yeah.
But there's going to be a role for, cop all ethnicities, 40 to 45. I don't think you're taking that from me. There's definitely a, racist white cop. There's definitely a military role. There's definitely a non-racist white cop. Good cop, bad cop. That's white or all ethnicities. But then there's going to be age.
Right.
I'm like, I'm pretty sure you're not taking my roles from me. Come join the party, man. If you want to get into it, here's the links, man. But you're 20 years younger than me and black, or you're 20 years older than me and female. You're not going to take my roles from me. No. Yeah,
because age makes a difference in the story as well. So, because each character has a backstory. What's their intent? What's their place in the story? I mean, with breakdowns, I like to make sure. I think I started talking about this before. I'm not sure if I finished the thought, so I'll finish it now. To make sure, like, okay, well, this character, if it's a really specific story, it's like, oh, but can we open up this character to a different ethnicity? Okay, sure. Okay, which ethnicities can we open up to realistically? Because, there are some roles that may be written that if we cast a certain ethnicity, it may come across the wrong way, and then you're out of the story. You know what I mean?
Right.
Out of the story. So that's not. So if a role character could be all ethnicities, great. If it's like, okay, we could have, black, Latin, or white in this role, great. We'll see those groups, and and so on and so forth. And then if it's a role that's that has to be a one specific ethnicity because it's based on a true person, great. I mean, self-explanatory, so that's really important to know. And our conversations, casting directors conversations, we really are up at bat for the talent. We really fight for the talent in being as inclusive as appropriately possible. And also just pitching actors, whether it's someone, okay, this is a lesser known actor, but look at what the credits they've done. And I know they're going to be on a show soon that's being picked up, and they're going to skyrocket.
Right.
You know what I mean? So it's those conversations, and, I don't know, I like pitching the underdog sometimes, you know what I mean? So I'm an underdog myself. So, so it just comes naturally, but
not only as a filmmaker, but as like, a fan of comedy and a fan of like The Office. And I've talked about this a number of times. The Office was full of no names, Jenna Fisher, Krasinski, Rainn Wilson, John Krasinski, they were no names. And I just happen to know Steve Carell from The Daily Show, and I think Ben Stiller's show on Fox years prior. So he was recognizable to me.
Yeah.
Only 6 episodes, but they casted nothing but no names. And now who Stanley, Phyllis, Kevin, Creed, Brian, Ryan, Kelly. I mean, Mindy Cahill is huge now, and she was freaking nobody on that show.
Yeah,
she was the ditzy girl in the back.
She's talented, really talented woman.
She's a genius. I just watched Late Night. Just one of the best movies I think of this year about like, that kind of like subgenre of looking at behind the scenes and looking at women's roles in entertainment and women and again women trying to like move up in ranks, and then you got a woman of color, a woman of ethnicity, just starting out, coming from nothing. She came from like, I think she worked at a cheese factory or something, and then she started writing for Late Night, and it was such a incredible different take on, there's been a bunch of movies about you know, the behind the scenes of news shows or talk shows or whatever, but that was like one of the best ones I've seen in a long time. But freaking 15 years ago, she was just a nobody on The Office, and she blew up.
Yeah. Well, it's called perseverance. You know what I mean? So I think, you know, I think in any industry, but especially in entertainment, you have to keep going.
Yeah.
You know, you will get knocked down 7 times, but you have to get up that 8th time, you know?
Right.
So, and I followed that as well. You know, even I assisted really great casting directors like, you know, A.B. Kaufman and Liz Lewis and Bernie Telsey. I got my training from them, and then went up the ranks. And then when I worked with my former casting partner, and we did film and theater, and it was wonderful. And then I went off on my own, but you still have to prove yourself each time.
Yeah.
You know, you can work for the best, but when you're on your own, it's a whole nother mountain you have to climb.
Yeah.
You know, but if you keep going, you really, the feeling is really amazing knowing that you did it on your own, you know?
Yeah. But also that show took a risk.
Yeah.
They took that risk. Like you were saying that you want to influence that risk with some lesser known folks. Like they took that risk.
Yeah.
And, you know, again, Steve Carell, I think, was the most star power they had, and he was like doing bit parts or like supporting roles or something. And I just happened, I didn't know his name was not a household name by any means, but I recognized him from other stuff. But
I mean, look at what Orange Is the New Black has done. It's just a fun show. I mean, it's crazy, but I watched each season. It was great, and it ended on a high note. Like, it ended really well. It wrapped really well. But Jen Houston is the casting director on that, and she did a great job filling in all these interesting women.
Yeah.
So,
and personally, I didn't recognize anybody at all, except for obviously the dude Jason Biggs from American Pie. But then when I started looking up stuff, the older Russian woman was from Star Trek Voyager.
Yeah.
But
a lot of great theater actors,
but completely metamorphosized. But she completely metamorphosized, and that's like that Steve Carell kind of. They took Jason Biggs because he's much more recognizable. Maybe to get that little star power push, but in that show, he had such a small role. But then to cast Catherine something, I think her name is. I can't remember her name. From the Russian, the older Russian character she's American. She's Star Trek Voyager, and didn't recognize her one bit until, as me and the wife were watching that show, I looked her up, and I was just blown away. Like, holy crap, that's her, you know. And maybe that was like a little extra star power.
Yeah. Speaking of up and coming folks, have you because I know one of your questions was which series am I watching or film? Did you watch Unorthodox?
No.
On Netflix? Shira Haas is blowing up. It's such a beautiful series.
I think I've heard of it, but nah, I have to check that out. Tell me about it.
Yeah, it's about the Hasidic community, and I mean, there's really, it's a specific group in that community, but it's just beautifully done. And I watched behind the scenes. I mean, I always suggest people watch behind the scenes, so you can really, especially if you're a filmmaker, so you can really see how things are constructed, and you learn from more veteran folks how they approach it, and maybe you can incorporate that in your way of approaching your own projects. So. It's definitely a really great series. You should check it out. And now she's everywhere.
I think we started. My wife's Jewish, and but they're not Orthodox. They're like, you know, only high holidays type of family, which is convenient for me because my dog tags say Jedi. So
right.
I was able to because you can't tell me what my religion is.
Right.
So, but I guess Jedi is about as close to what my religion would be if that existed. Right. But I mean, we started watching a little bit of that. But check off that that point. Is there anything else you're watching or reading?
I start reading just the scripts I'm interviewing for. But I've been doing some binging on Netflix, a lot of that, because it's just so easy. And of course, you have to have my guilty pleasures like Cupcake Wars, Cake Wars. I love like Sugar Rush.
Mm-hmm.
Because you just have to take your mind off, because when I'm watching shows, it's wonderful, but it is kind of like work. So I try to watch just like more reality TV type stuff just to kind of escape.
Yeah.
Give my mind a vacation for a little bit.
Well, that's what my wife's like. Everything on Bravo she watches.
Yeah.
So I think I guess my version of reality is not even reality. It's a professional wrestling, AEW on TNT. Mm-hmm. And so I watch AEW, and that's kind of like my escape, even though that's kind of like my reality show, my soap opera.
Right.
Even though it's written, scripted, choreographed, predetermined. Right. It's still like I'm still a pro wrestling buff. But
I'm not a fan of like Real Housewives. I can't do
that. She watches every single one of them. She knows every single one of those people. She knows all their backstories, and I'm like blown away by that.
Yeah.
I couldn't do it. I think, I actually watched Jersey Shore from beginning to end. I followed that. It was addicting. I got into it. And that's the one reality show that I can claim, next to Project Greenlight. I guess that's more of a docu-series than a reality show. Project Greenlight, obviously, behind the scenes, filmmaking and all that.
Right.
But like I'm catching up on Agent Carter, which is like an MCU tie-in.
Have you seen Greenleaf?
No. Mm-mm.
Greenleaf is really, really great cast with Lynn Whitfield. Yeah. What else? Oh my gosh, I have to like look in my Netflix history right now, because it's like you watch so much then you forget. Yeah. Well, Mindy's show, Never Have I Ever. Do I have that right?
That's kind of like a game show, right?
No. It's about this young girl. It's based on her. Yeah, Never Have I Ever. It's on Netflix as well. It's based on her childhood and her experience in high school. So it's so great. It's so great.
There's just so much stuff out there. It's amazing.
Yeah. And I mean, I saw, when I was reading the trades, unfortunately, Robert Pattinson got COVID and the project had to shut down for a couple of weeks. But I bring that up because I saw the trailer for it.
The one thing that
Batman, it looks pretty good.
The one thing that I wanted to see. And I was super jazzed about him. Everybody was like, "What? Robert Pattinson?" Mm-hmm. But if you've seen Good Time, Have you seen Good Time?
Yeah.
Oh my God! Yeah. I was just talking about Good Time and Uncut Gems with a previous guest, and it's like,
Uncut Gems with Adam Sandler, stop. Right?
Yeah, it's like, bro, stop. These guys make filmmakers on like the dumbest, the worst, shittiest, dumbest people on the planet. And it like whenever when I was watching both Good Time and Uncut Gems, you're just screaming at the TV like, bro, stop, just stop, just stop. And it's so, I mean, and Good Time had like some semblance of a happy ending, a tiny little like with another character, but Uncut Gems there was nothing.
There was Uncut Gems. That was a sad ending.
Yeah,
that was a sad. But Adam Sandler was so great in it.
Great.
He really, I mean, I've always liked him.
Yeah.
Like as an actor.
I like all his dumb films.
Yeah.
All the films that he makes that people dump on, they're still funny. They're just still like, they're stupid. They're kind of goofy and they're funny.
Like Happy Gilmore.
Well, those were the good, like everyone says those were the good ones, like his earlier ones, Billy Madison, Happy Gilmore. But like people are making fun of, what is it? The Ridiculous Six. And I guess
I didn't see that.
There was some like, and it got some heat for racism or prejudice or like Native, like bad connotations towards the Native Americans. But to me, it was still like kind of goofy and funny in a way. Grown Ups is kind of funny and entertaining. I mean, like all his films, 50 First Dates.
Oh, that was fun though.
Yeah,
I enjoyed that
Yeah.
as a gal.
Mm-hmm.
It was fun. And Drew Barrymore was in it. Yeah, she lost her memory and
She loses her memory every day.
yeah.
Yeah, it was. I mean, it was a kind of a ripoff of Clean Slate with Dana Carvey, but still, it was funny. But so going back to like self submits and Skype interviews, how would you say you've been impacted, by the quarantine? Say the last 6 months.
Well, just this requesting self tapes, viewing them, etc. That has been going on before, like I was mentioning. But with COVID, I mean, the industry shut down for a while, so things were a bit quiet for a little bit. VO always stayed. I mean, there's plenty of voiceovers that were happening because most VO actors, as we were talking about, have their own home studio now, et cetera, or they hide themselves in the closet with their clothes around to help with sound, and they record. But I did a virtual open call to see if who's out there that I don't know yet. So I've been using that time to explore actors I don't know yet, and also for business development, because I do casting, in the US. So I was speaking with a casting director in London, also Spain, in the event that they need casting in the States. It's about maximizing your time, obviously there's a part of the pandemic that it took a bit to kind of just get settled into it.
Yeah.
So to speak, with like PPP and things like that, I know everyone was
all of March, we were just going around to every single establishment that sold toilet paper, and I would buy a big pack of toilet paper. You remember the toilet paper month? Yeah. So
I was like, I got 4 rolls right here. I hope I can use it for the next 3 weeks. But that was wild.
Well, I told the wife, I said we should get a bidet, and she goes, "We're not getting a bidet." And I'm like, we can get one. We can order one, and you can like attach it to the back, and it sits inside. She goes, "That's so stupid. Just get toilet paper." I'm like, listen, the government said they can't shut your water off.
Yeah.
But if you use a bidet, you only need one wipe of a toilet paper. But they're not going to shut your water off. So you got endless bidet toilet paper.
Right.
Because the government was forbidden, or not the government, but water companies were forbidden by the government to shut off people's utilities during that whole certain point of time.
Right.
So you use a bidet after you go, and then just probably one wipe from the toilet paper. You're not going to run out of toilet paper that way.
Did you guys end up getting one?
No, of course not. I lost that battle. It's like, come on, let's think outside the box here.
That's funny.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, it was interesting because I think I'm not talking about like Black Lives Matter. Like, I'm just putting that aside right now. I'm just focusing on the effects of the pandemic. Just like a lot of people are like, oh my God, working from home. I think working from home is a privilege. It's pretty nice, actually.
Yeah,
now, don't get me wrong. Not being able to go outside because you have to quarantine. Yes, that adds an extra layer of, not thrilling. But also if you have children, it's hard.
Yeah.
Trying to work, you're on Zooms, they're here, they're there, for a while, nannies weren't allowed to go to homes yet. And then now I have a friend that's a nanny. And
do you have kids?
No, I don't know. I got my dog. I got a hairy being behind me. She's sleeping. But yeah, she's pretty cool. But I mean, since the pandemic started, I was actually on a flight coming back from LA. I did a casting panel. I was literally there for 36 hours. Good thing I wasn't there longer, because who knows, I may have not been able to fly back.
Yeah.
But yeah, and then I prepped from home, cast out of studios downtown Manhattan, and I have a home office here, and yeah, so that didn't change. I still had to walk my dog, wear my mask, gloves to the store. I kept it basic, but so that kind of day to day didn't change for me, so thankfully I was used to that already. It was interesting because at that point, then people were getting rid of their office space because they couldn't, you know what I mean? Because it was, a lot of it came at once. So I was thankful that I wasn't tied into a lease, at a commercial office space, because that's a whole another ball of wax.
Yep.
So, my choices ended up being okay in the end.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, I hope that people, it was a time also to catch up with family. And I'm not going to lie, at first when it was really quiet, it was actually nice just to like chill out for a bit,
Yeah.
And not have to worry about like, oh, everybody else is working. Like I'm kind of like half on vacation, It's nice just to be like, okay, the next 2 weeks, I know nothing's happening, And I think that was needed. I definitely needed it because I haven't been on vacation like in 6 years. So that was really nice.
Nice little staycation.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
well, have you been
everybody left the city? I went go on my block. It's like, where is everyone? So, I mean, now people are starting to come back, but a lot of families, they sold their homes, like their apartments. So it's been interesting seeing things come full circle. And I mean, there's talk about a second wave soon. Hopefully that won't hit New York City or anyone really. But, obviously certain areas of the country are following protocol while others are not as much. So we'll see.
Have you been back on set yet?
No, I won't go on set until there's a vaccine. I won't have in-person auditions until there's a vaccine. I'm pretty strict with that.
Yeah, and that's exactly what I told the wife, and I've been telling clients. I said, it's going to be this corporate or industrial virtual conferences, virtual DJ sessions, virtual concerts, virtual podcasts. Like I can, I've had some potential clients say like, hey, I see you doing a podcast, can you set mine up? And I said, listen, I can write up a schematic or I could run it remotely for you, or I'll take a donation and I'll write up a schematic on what you need and blah, 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 blah. But yeah, it's all remote.
Yeah.
And I'm also, I am a certified COVID compliance officer. So with that, I'm going to I'm not going to, rip people off and just like charge, astronomical rates, but that I would do on set as that.
It's very needed now.
And it's very needed.
And
so
moving
I know,
forward.
Yeah. And probably for the next 2, 3, maybe even 5 years, just because it's going to be like this slow residual thing. But me being an experienced AD, production coordinator, production manager, producer, director, like I'll have that kind of mindset with understanding as far as production goes, but that would probably be the only position I would do on set.
Right.
And just be like super strict Sergeant Nelson, just like put your mask on.
Yeah. I mean, from what I hear, and obviously, since you're a qualified at it, it's very rigid. I mean, understandably so, like there's zones from what I understand. And then, I mean, it all makes sense. It's expensive, like could be 20% of the budget, of the total production budget. So,
because they got to buy all that hand sanitizer and wipes and sprays
but also to have an officer monitoring everything and the cleaning company to sterilize so it's I mean, I was talking to someone who's not in our industry. I was talking with them yesterday and I was giving them a breakdown of like what all these requirements have been from what I've been told. And she's like, wow, I never realized how in depth it was. I'm like, yeah, it's serious and it costs money. But, I think what's funny is that I started laughing because when I'm part of an advertising group and we had a COVID call, like what's the protocol? like who's the best cleaning company, how's it affecting casting, et cetera, right? And what was funny is that you're not allowed to bring as many people on set. And I just laughed. I'm like, well, there goes the agency creatives that want to go on set just to kind of like kill a day. They can't, only people who absolutely need to be on set. But obviously there's, remote video village, going on. So it's just, I laughed at that, but I'm like, yeah, they didn't have to be on set to begin with. But, but I think it's helpful because it's whoever absolutely needs to be on set is there. And I think maybe it'll be more focus.
Yeah.
Instead of like the girlfriend, the dog, and
Yeah, it's going to be it's going to be a smaller cast and crew, which makes things a lot more focused. Yeah, you're absolutely right.
Yeah. Do you think people are going to tailor scripts more towards COVID? So, or you think it's just, obviously if it's if it's based on a true story, you can only do so much.
Yeah.
But maybe, do you think they're going to write for a smaller cast?
So for example, I was going to direct this script, and obviously everything fell through. I never got around to it. It was a feature script, and there was a bunch of scenes. And so I told the writer, I said, listen, this is a flag football scene, FBI versus Marines. And on a flag football team, there's probably 10 to 15 on each side. I don't remember anymore. Hundreds of people in these outdoor stands at this flag football thing. And I'm like, dude, we can make this an indoor basketball game. All right. 5 on each team. The female FBI agent can still get up in this big male Marine's face, because that was the whole point. She's tough. She's badass. She doesn't take shit from nobody. 20 people in the stands just watching. It's like, it's the basketball court at the gym on base of Quantico, FBI base. And so, and then if it's indoors, we can shoot it any time of the day. It doesn't have to be a day scene exterior.
Right.
It can be day for night or day, because it's an indoor basketball scene. So there's that thinking. So now with COVID, something like that would work. Right. And now with something like that would be an absolute must. However, with COVID, it would have to be outside now.
Right.
So, because it would have to be because you don't want everybody jam-packed inside. And so now we take, instead of having let's say 200 plus 30, so it's 130, let's do the basketball thing, but outside. And then there's all of those little logistical, creative, thinking outside, et cetera, et cetera. And so it's that has to go into effect a lot.
Yeah.
With just about every scene. And Host, there's a new independent film on Shudder called Host. And it's about people on Zoom. It's shot with Zoom. You even see the Zoom interface and all the buttons and everything. And it's about these people on Zoom during the pandemic that hold a seance. And then the demon is just like attacking all these different people throughout.
Oh, wow.
In their places.
It's like Blair Witch Project on Zoom.
But it's like Blair Witch on Zoom. And it was scary. It was well done. From a filmmaker standpoint, I liked what they pulled off using Zoom.
Yeah.
What they did at their locations and these little camera tricks and some CGI, minimal, but some CGI, but very minimal. And it was very cool to see just people thinking outside the box. And that's what's going to have to be, which leads me to my new point. I was going to ask you about, the new normal, but that's my view, is that, again, content's king. People are going to look for new things. They're going to buy and stream, streaming networks and TV networks. They're going to buy and show all this new content because all the old normal type of stuff isn't going to be made as quickly and as efficiently as it used to be. But like you were saying, if it's going to be an old normal setup, it's going to have to be a new normal of sacrificing extras, what was outdoor could be indoor with 5 people, and what was indoor can be outdoor with 15 people.
Right.
You're going to have to just basically go exact opposite of what that scene originally was written, and
which is exciting, actually.
Yeah, and that's
Test
exciting.
the creativity. I think it's. I don't know. I feel like if someone can make not like it has to be bare bones, but if you can challenge oneself to make with as little as cast possible to move the story forward, that could be 50 characters. I don't know, but or it could be 10 characters. I feel like, or maybe not as many locations, but you have a really beautiful lens that you're using, so the picture quality it'll still look, high end. I think, I don't know. I like films that look like they're more expensive than what they were made for, and they stick to the story, and there's no superfluous things about it,
Have you seen Fences with Denzel?
Yeah, of course, yeah.
And that was produced way before the quarantine. And it's films like that. They can start just scooping up plays, because I think there's maybe 10 characters in that whole film total, and the whole film takes place in front, inside, and the back, most of the backyard of the house. There was that one scene. There was that one scene where he went to go fight this case with work, and at that city council office, and that was it. Everything else took place at that house.
Yeah.
And so it's going to be a lot of these, micro budget, character oriented, 1 to 2, 3 location, or 1 location and 5 setup type deals. Blair Witch, Fences, Reservoir Dogs, Swingers.
Swingers.
Yeah, I mean Swingers. If you want,
I haven't seen Swingers in a while.
You could easily dumb that down and still have all the same stuff. I mean, there was just one club. They went to a bunch of different clubs, but just one club. They only go to the Dresden throughout the whole movie. They don't go to those other clubs. Yeah. In
Uncut Gem, sorry. There wasn't too many locations, right?
Not too many. And
yeah.
Have you seen
Good but
did you see Good Time? But did you see Good Time with Robert Pattinson, which is those filmmakers' previous film?
No, I didn't.
Okay.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, Good Time was probably 4 locations. I think Uncut Gems was, you got his family. I got his apartment, his wife's house. There was that other family's house. That all could be shot all at the same real world location. You had his jeweler's office, the casino,
and then the apartment. His apartment with his girlfriend.
Well, his apartment, his wife's house, and then that dinner, then that family dinner party he was at. That could be all one. Those are 3 locations. But real world, that could be 1 location.
Yeah.
And then there was that club.
The club scene was hilarious.
That club scene was just so funny. Yeah. I don't cheat. And you're like, come on now. It was just all those people are just disasters, man.
Yeah. I was like, I'm glad I'm not in there.
Yeah. But your view in the new normal is teleworking.
Yeah, I mean, it's teleworking, and then it's, on my breakdowns, I have to add, what the COVID plan is from the producer, so everyone knows up front what precautions are being taken. And obviously some of that will be added to the actor's deal memo, just so it's there and they sign off on it, that they were provided that info and they feel comfortable. I mean, casting didn't change in the sense of, casting is casting. We may not have, because now things are ramping up. I interviewed for a film that, has a, actually a 4-week turnaround. So it's quick, but a feature film. And, but then there's other films that may not shoot till next spring. I find that it really depends on the studio or just the producer, the production company of who's shooting when. I know some producers who won't shoot until there's a vaccine. And they're hoping that will happen by the next spring, that there'll be some sort of vaccine available, because it's just, the overhead is just too much on the cost. But there are 2 firms that I read on, I think, Deadline, that are actually opening up insurance coverage for COVID, which was
still not worth it for me, man. It's still not worth it for me. It's still not.
I don't know what's the difference between that cost versus just paying out of pocket, if that makes sense.
It's probably better to get the insurance, but me personally, it's still not worth the risk for me to go on set. I mean, I have general production insurance in case something happens, and I have turned it on and off a number of times. Obviously, I turned it off way before quarantine, and then, but if it's probably more cost efficient and budget efficient to have insurance than to pay out of pocket. Because out of pocket, the premiums, you might spend like $2,000, but then insurance is going to cover 40 grand instead of paying 40 grand out of pocket.
Right.
It's definitely worth getting the insurance for COVID insurance, but I can't agree with you more. It's just, but I think last night CDC released that a vaccine is not going to be available until next summer. So there's that.
like it's going to be what it's going to be.
It's going to be what it's going to be.
Things that we can't, we can only focus on things we can control, which is up here. Yeah. And just kind of taking things one day at a time. Yeah. But for many of us, we're in the same boat. We're in a similar boat.
Yeah. Have you ever seen Heat with De Niro and Pacino? Heat. Yeah, it's my #1 film. But Pacino, he said, you could get killed walking your doggy.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Like everyone's like, but and I'm like, you could get killed walking your dog.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna wear a mask. I'm gonna be safe.
Sure.
There's only so much I can control. Yeah. I'm not going on set until there's a vaccine, but there's other things I can do. But at the same time, right? Yes, I'm not gonna be, I'm not gonna lock myself in the house and never leave. Because I mean, I could get COVID from an Amazon package, or I could get COVID from, I don't know, other stuff, something else. Like somebody's kid could get passed to somebody's kid, to somebody's parent, to somebody else's kid, to my kid at daycare. Yeah. So it's still, there's always a way, and that's not a dig at Amazon, but by any means, I get a package from Amazon every other day, but you could get killed walking your dog.
Right. Of course. Yeah. So, yeah. I mean, it's really unfortunate how, I mean, that aside, but it's really unfortunate how some people in the country, in the US, they're not taking it seriously, just to even wear a mask. It's like, you see videos of people who were ill and they've passed away. Like it's a real thing, COVID, it's a real thing.
It is.
It's not just people are just dying randomly. And I really feel for the families that have been affected, losing family members from it. Cause it's, you can't go in the hospital. Like these people passed away on their own. It's like, it's horrible to leave what we know as the existence, like by yourself, that's really, that's terrifying. Yeah. And like, I know someone who had like a Zoom funeral. It's like, they couldn't even go to their father's funeral. Like, it's really awful, and so I just really hope that, there are people that do take it seriously. Just wear a mask. It just put it on.
It's not that hard. And
that's what it is. Wear gloves at the store, wash your hands. Yeah. That's all, like, to your point, that's all you can do. But at least, every person is a sibling, a parent, a friend of someone else. So it's kind of, Yeah. I think that's important that people, especially here in the States. I don't know. It's just, I don't know. Cause if it's everyone out for themselves here. I mean, obviously there's many people who are not like that in the US, you know, there's plenty of good people here too. But just in general, culturally, it's like, it's about winning and not caring about humanity. That's a whole nother discussion. But anyway, but you know, I was going on a little tangent for a second.
That's all right. Yeah, no, but like, you know, a lot of colleagues, entrepreneurs, filmmakers, YouTubers, musicians, make your own branded masks and just like with your logo on the front. And
that's a great idea.
Because and now, I mean, everybody's doing it, but but if everybody's doing it, then obviously it's something to do. I wish I could find my masks, because I made some branded masks, but
I did think about getting like a t-shirt, like for open calls, like in-person open calls. I'm getting t-shirts, so it was easy to find my team, you know. But now I can add a mask to that when things go back into being in person. Now it's all virtual, and there we go. But yeah.
Well, you kind of touched on it, but do you have a last point or last bit of advice for our viewers?
I think whatever you are looking to achieve, whether it's an entertainment or something else, I mean, if there's a skill you want to learn, go for it. If you have an idea for a business, go for it. You know, educate yourself, make sure you're taking the proper steps, but, you know, don't give up. And, you know, it's about having the right mindset to kind of keep going, you know, and you also, it's great to have support. Absolutely. But you also have to be your number one cheerleader, because the only person that lives in your body is you. You know, like you deal with waking up at 4 a.m., getting ready, building your brand or building your company or whatever, or developing a skill. It's you that is doing that, not anyone else. So yeah.
Like I know this is a good idea. Somebody else might not get it, but if you get it, then ride it. You know, do your best to, you know, convince people and bring people onto a team. Do your best to pitch it and explain it. If they don't get it, move on. Pitch it to somebody else. But if you know this is a good idea, then ride it. I mean, especially now, there's nothing. What else is going on? What else are you doing?
Right. And that goes for, you know, whether you have a series idea, TV series idea, or an idea for film. Write the script. There's so many writers that have been enjoying the pandemic because they have been just able to focus on writing, and really they go deep into it. So they've been turning out more scripts, which is really nice. So I'm excited to see what projects come out, you know, from that. So
absolutely. Well, Jennifer, any socials, links, plugs?
Yeah. So if you go to my website, jenniferajamian.com, all my socials are linked there. Instagram is the best way to follow me, because I post, that's my main hub. I post there, and it disperses to all my other social media accounts. So yeah, which is, I think, what's my IG? It's Jennifer_Ajamian_casting. So, but if you go to my website, it's all on the bottom of the homepage, and you just click right there and you can find me.
Awesome. Well, also all the links in the description below as well. So click on those and check out Jennifer's stuff. And Jennifer, I can't thank you enough for coming on.
Yeah, this is so much fun.
Yeah, it was a lot of great points, great discussion, great ideas, inspiration, positivity. That's most important. It's just positivity and a light at the end of the tunnel. Well, thanks again so much for coming on.
Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. To my viewers, I hope I've earned the privilege of your time and viewership. I know my guest has. And until next time, check us out.